Welcome to 15 Minutes Health, your source for clear, evidence-based insights in nutrition, neuroscience, longevity, and everyday wellness. Each video delivers science you can trust, designed to help you build a stronger, healthier life, all in under 15 minutes. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss practical, science-backed tools that can improve your health for the rest of your life.
For centuries, we've all been chasing happiness. Philosophies, entire religions, even our economic systems have been built around this idea of living a good life. And for most of history, we've had to rely on assumptions, tying happiness to things like getting wealthy or gaining status. But today is different. For the very first time, we can actually move past all that guesswork. Science can give us a much, much clearer map to a life well lived. So in this explainer, we're going to synthesize the key findings from decades of research to see what that map really looks like. So to really get this, we've got to start by looking at the limits of how we usually measure progress. Back in 1968, Robert F. Kennedy gave this incredible speech where he pointed out that the gross national product, the main economic scorecard for a country, it just fails to capture what it actually means to thrive. It can measure economic activity, sure, but it can't measure the quality of our kids' education or the strength of our friendships. His point was simple but profound. Our most common way of measuring success completely ignores the very things that make life worth living.
And that really begs the question, right? If our standard economic report card is incomplete, and if just chasing wealth isn't the guaranteed path to well-being, then what is? What does all the scientific evidence, from psychology, economics, these incredible long-term studies, what does it all tell us are the real ingredients for a flourishing life? Well, here's the really cool part. Happiness isn't some big mystery anymore. By pulling together decades of research from all over the world, scientists have put together a clear, evidence-based picture. And what we know now is that well-being isn't just a fleeting mood or something that happens by chance. It's a predictable and measurable state, and it's influenced by a core set of factors. And many of them are things we can actually control. So let's dive into this scientific map and see what it shows us. Okay, so first things first, we've got to be on the same page about what we're even talking about. To study and measure happiness, scientists had to take it from this vague, fuzzy concept and break it down into distinct, measurable pieces. In the research world, scientists don't usually just say happiness. The term they use most often is subjective well-being, or SWB for short. And that's just the technical term for how you personally evaluate your own life. It's subjective. It's your assessment that counts. And it's a much broader idea than just feeling good for a moment. It's about your thoughts and your feelings about your life as a complete picture. So this SWB thing really breaks down into two big pieces. First, you've got life satisfaction. Think of this as the cognitive part. It's your brain's big picture judgment of your life story. It's when you step back and ask, all things considered, how is my life going? The second piece is emotional well-being. This is the affective part, how you actually feel day in and day out, the balance of positive feelings like joy versus negative ones like stress. Now, what's really fascinating is that these two can go in different directions. You can have really high life satisfaction, feeling like your life is on a great track, but at the same time be having a really stressful day with low emotional well-being. Now, taking this a step further, the psychologist Martin Seligman came up with a really comprehensive framework called well-being theory, but most people know it by the acronym PERMA. He argues that a truly flourishing life is built on 5 different pillars. There's P for positive emotion, which we just talked about, E for engagement, that feeling of being totally absorbed in what you're doing, what some people call flow, R for relationships, which are crucial, M for meaning or having a purpose, and A for accomplishment, or that sense of mastery. The big takeaway here is that well-being isn't just one thing. It's this rich combination of 5 different elements we can actually work on.
All right, so we've got a good definition now. But that leads to the next big question. What are the fundamental things that actually drive our well-being? And are the ingredients for a good life the same for everyone, no matter what country or culture you come from? To get at that question, we can look to one of the most solid frameworks in all of psychology, self-determination theory. It was developed by 2 researchers, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, and what it suggests is that all human beings, across every single culture, have a set of innate, universal psychological needs. The theory basically says that if we want to grow and thrive, we absolutely have to get these needs met. Okay, so the whole theory boils down to these 3 core psychological needs, and you can think of them like psychological nutrients. They're non-negotiable for us to flourish. The first is autonomy. This is the need to feel like you're in the driver's seat of your own life, that you have choice and control.
The second is competence, the need to feel effective, to feel like you're good at what you do and can handle challenges. And the third is relatedness, that fundamental human need to connect with other people, to care for them and feel like they care for you. Study after study, all across the world, shows that when people get these three needs met, their well-being goes up, plain and simple. Now, all three of those needs are absolutely crucial, but a massive amount of research has pointed to one of them, relatedness, as the single most powerful predictor of a long, happy, and healthy life. It consistently comes out on top. And the best proof of this comes from a really incredible project called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. I mean, this thing is just a remarkable piece of science. For over 80 years, researchers have been tracking the lives of the same group of men, year after year after year. They've collected data on everything, their work, their health, their relationships. It is without a doubt one of the longest and most thorough studies of human life ever done. So after following these guys from the time they were teenagers all the way into their 90s, the director of the study, Dr. Robert Waldinger, summed up their single biggest finding with this quote: "It wasn't about who got the richest or the most famous or had the most successful career. The best predictor of who would end up being a happy, healthy 80-year-old was the quality of their close relationships. The data was just crystal clear, period." But here's the key detail, and it's a big one. The benefit didn't come from having hundreds of friends or being in a marriage. It came from the depth and the security of those connections. Having just a few warm, supportive people in your life that you know you can count on, that acts as this powerful buffer against all the stresses life throws at you. These high-quality relationships protect not just our minds, but our bodies too, way more than any other single factor they measured. Okay, so we've established that relationships are the absolute foundation. But what about the other big things in our day-to-day lives? How do our income, the work we do every day, and our physical health fit into this happiness equation?
Let's start with money, because this is where the research gets really interesting, especially from Nobel Prize winners Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton. What they found is a split. As your income goes up, your life evaluation, how you think about your life, your overall story, it keeps climbing. People with more money tend to rate their life as being better. But their emotional well-being, how happy or stressed or sad they actually feel on any given day, that levels off. Once you have enough money to meet your basic needs and get rid of that constant financial worry, more money doesn't really do much to improve your day-to-day happiness.
And that idea leads us right into the world of our jobs. If a bigger paycheck isn't the main driver of happiness at work, what is? Well, the research shows it's the experience of the work itself. When our job allows us to feel a sense of meaningful progress, tapping right into those needs for competence and autonomy we talked about, it becomes this huge source of well-being. That feeling of getting better at something that matters to you is a way more reliable source of happiness than just stacking up more money. All right, let's talk about our physical health. The link between our bodies and our minds is just incredibly strong and well-proven. When scientists do these big systematic reviews where they look at the results of dozens of studies all at once, they consistently find this clear, positive link between physical activity and happiness. Simply moving our bodies is one of the most effective and reliable ways there is to boost our mood. And what's so cool about this is that it's a feedback loop. It's a two-way street. It's not just that being healthy makes you happier. Being happier also leads to better health in the future. The research shows that higher well-being creates this powerful positive cycle. It helps protect you from the negative effects of stress, it's linked to a stronger immune system, and it can even lower the risk of dying in people who have chronic illnesses. So when you invest in your well-being, you're making a direct investment in your long-term physical health. All right, so we've talked about relationships, money, work, health, our daily environment, but there's a deeper, more internal piece to a flourishing life, and that's the human need for meaning and purpose. You know, in psychology, they have a term for this, eudaimonic well-being, and it's really important to get this. Having a sense of purpose is related to happiness, but they are not the same thing. You can feel pleasure without it being meaningful, and you can find a ton of meaning in things that aren't always fun or pleasurable, like raising a child or training for a marathon. The research is clear that these are two separate things that both contribute to a good life. And the payoff for finding that sense of meaning, it's huge. People who feel like their lives are about something bigger than just themselves consistently report higher life satisfaction. They also tend to have lower levels of anxiety and are way more resilient when things get tough. Having a why, whether it comes from your community, your spirituality, a personal mission, it gives you this psychological anchor that makes you feel stable and that your life is truly worthwhile. Okay, this is maybe the most important part of this whole conversation. We now have this really clear map of what a flourishing life looks like. But knowing that is just the first step. The science also shows us very clearly that happiness is a skill. It's something that can be trained and built through specific intentional habits. And look, this isn't just some nice idea. We have the data to back it up. A huge meta-analysis, that's a study of studies, looked at 39 different trials with over 6,000 people. And it found that simple positive psychology practices had a statistically significant effect on well-being. This number on the screen, D equals 0.34, it represents what scientists call a small but very real effect. It's proof that these simple, intentional habits can genuinely move the needle on how you feel. So, what are these things that actually work? Well, the research points to a core set of tools that are consistently effective. Things like gratitude practices, just taking a moment to write down a few things you're thankful for. Intentionally doing acts of kindness for other people. Practicing mindfulness to get out of your head and into the present moment. And finally, finding ways to use your signature strengths, the things you're naturally good at and that you enjoy, in your daily life. Every single one of these is a reliable, evidence-based tool for boosting your own well-being. So let's just pull all of this together for a second. The core message from all this science is actually pretty clear. Happiness is not some elusive mystery. It's a system with reliable, measurable inputs. The science is overwhelming that the single most powerful driver is the quality of our relationships, followed very closely by having a sense of meaning and purpose. On top of that, you have the foundations of meaningful work and good physical health. And maybe most empowering of all, well-being is a skill that you can actively train through simple, intentional, positive habits. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the science of a good life. We've covered what it takes to build a flourishing life. So now, the only real question is about application. Thinking about everything we've talked about, strengthening a relationship, doing an act of kindness, maybe a moment of gratitude, what is one small, research-backed change you're going to apply in your own life in the next 24 hours?
Thanks for watching 15 Minutes Health. If this video helped you, consider subscribing. Your support allows us to keep creating clear, science-backed content to help you stay healthier, stronger, and better informed. See you in the next video.